So the hits keep coming. A couple of days ago, we saw this explosion at a factory near Moscow leads to speculation about its military use. And here's a video of the explosion. You can see this plume. This is from The Guardian. And you're seeing, like, that's a pretty significant explosion. What's going on there? This was 2 days ago or so. And let's go and investigate it. Now, that's not the only thing that happened 2 days ago, but it's part of the broader third counteroffensive strategy that I just talked about yesterday. I was explaining how, well, go watch the video. The counteroffensive has gone into different segments and they're layered one on top of another. And this is the third component of the strategy, and it'll all make sense if you watch that video. TASS, of course, was concluding in their work here that there was nothing to see here. A blast occurred at a fireworks warehouse by the Pyro Ross Company. That's what they were saying, or they were claiming. Here's another video from RT showing it at the time where somebody's just mild-manneredly driving by, and we don't know what caused this. This could be a fireworks factory explosion. I think that's pretty not likely. It could be that it was an explosion at a munitions factory, which seems like a more leading whatever, but we don't know if it was a drone strike or if it was internal sabotage or if it was a careless cigarette or exactly what, but it was a pretty powerful explosion, and you'll see that in this video here. So this is, guy just, look at that, and it was pretty amazing. Okay, and this was on RT. But what was interesting about RT was RT only covered that, and this was 6 hours of just live feed. And they just put it out without commentary. So all it was people milling about, and then more people milling about, and more people milling about, and an hour later, more people milling about. And then they panned out a little bit, and you got to see a little of what it looked like eventually. Like, that's the destruction of this building. And we don't know exactly what caused the destruction yet. Maybe it'll come out, maybe it won't. We'll see how that works. But they just had this live feed, and it was very strange. There was no commentary, nobody claiming it was terrorism or whatever. So the downplaying makes me wonder about what was really there. Okay, here's in Twitter. Now at the same time, you could see things on Twitter. You could also see that there was an explosion at the airport, and again, this was covered by the UA tubers. They were talking about this explosion at the airport as well. Anna was talking about this particularly. But here's an article about the first explosion. Dozens injured in an explosion at a factory near Moscow, said to hold fireworks. An explosion is ripped through the factory, said to house fireworks in the Moscow region, injuring at least 40 people. The explosion took place at about 10:40 local time on Wednesday. Factory officials ordered a total evacuation of the area. Moscow region's governor, Andrei Vorobov, said that it was possible that workers had been trapped under the debris. Just hours before the blast, Russian Defense Ministry said that it had foiled a Ukrainian drone attack over the Moscow region. But those two things don't seem to be connected. It doesn't seem like the drones actually struck this warehouse. Maybe it did. It seems like they're lying that it was a fireworks factory. But okay. The Russian officials moved quickly to counter speculation that the explosion could be the result of a drone attack. Okay, which leads me to think that maybe it was, but I can't prove anything, so I'm not going to say or even say I think it could be that and it's not. I'm not going to say that. Okay, speaking of local media, Vorobov said that the workshop where the blast had taken place held pyrotechnics and did not manufacture optical equipment. Well, it turns out that they do manufacture optical equipment, and it was military optical equipment and military use optical equipment. Here is a little bit, 30 seconds of Jake Bro talking, and then 2 or 3 minutes of Arthur Ray.
Top story today has to be the huge explosion that destroyed a military optics factory near Moscow. The Zagorsk optical mechanical plant produced, we need to use past tense, produced optics sites and other equipment for Russia's military. The cause of the massive explosion is still currently unknown. And officially, this plant produced aviation sites, thermal imagers, night vision goggles, and binoculars. So how does
Now, if I was the Russian military, I would have had some greater defenses around something like this. If I was the Ukrainian military, I would definitely want to take out something that was producing these things. But I don't know what caused this, and it could have been just poor management, disgruntled employees, careless cigarettes. We really don't know what it was, but my gut tells me there was something. It wasn't just an accident. That's what my gut tells me, but I have zero proof about that. Okay, so let's look at Arthur Ray. He's talking about it for a good 2-3 minutes.
I'll gladly zoom in to Moscow because today so much happened in Moscow. It's gonna take a while to get through it, but let's get started. The first big explosion, the first big, extremely careless smoking case was on the Zagorsk optical device plant. This device also is responsible for making thermal and night vision devices for the Russian army. Extremely sensitive material that Russia has trouble producing due to the sanctions. Well, this was the biggest plant able to produce such stuff inside Russia, and now it goes kaboom into the space. I guess it wanted to join the turrets of the Russian T-72s onto the moon, but you know, a plant doesn't have a turret, so it doesn't work. On this footage, you can really see the power of this explosion because a few hundred meters away, high-rise apartment buildings have lost all of their windows. And if you look into the courtyard, you can see the windows with the surrounding support systems on the courtyard. So they have just popped out of the house and fallen onto the courtyard. No windows anymore. There's a shade of mystery over this explosion because the authorities are saying that it started on the boiler room. It was an accident. But the locals report drones. And also in one of the most sensitive military factories of Russia, I suspect something is off here. And on this footage we can see an artillery shell that probably exploded and landed, and now you can see it on the footage. What is an artillery shell doing in Moscow region? We are so used to seeing these shells, but in a civilian world you never see these shells. And if you do, there's probably a shell factory nearby. And after this explosion, these shells are everywhere. They flew all over the place. So we can only assume that they also hosted, held, or stored artillery munitions for some reason. So it was a full military target explosion. Social media and locals report about 10 deaths, 8 missing personnel, and 43 injured. So this was no small incident. This factory produced devices that were used in armored vehicles, artillery systems, aviation systems, also night vision and thermal visions, as I mentioned. Optical devices that Russia is in huge deficit of. And they cannot produce much because of sanctions, but this factory was able to make them, well, not anymore. Because it's hard to produce anything if your building doesn't exist. The factory...
And so that's really crippling. If they really need these kind of devices and they can't make them elsewhere, it's like the ball bearing plant kind of thing in World War II. It's really significant to have targeted this.
Also made components for the Ka-52 Alligator attack helicopter. This was only the first explosion. As I mentioned, there's one more in the Moscow region, and this one goes even closer to Moscow. In the vicinity of Domodedovo airport, there were explosions, and locals are reporting that 2 drones were shot down throughout the night and a fire started. Reportedly, a car maintenance service was on fire. The sky over the airport was closed throughout the night, and let's remember, this is the airport that hosts Moscow's international flights. Russian command structure has always tried to make it look like Russia can handle everything and Moscow is untouchable. But when the sky is closed, and your planes cannot land and have to circle around Moscow because the sky is too dangerous to land, this sends another message. So these...
And that's actually a really good point, right? I mean, if that's happening at an international Moscow airport and, you know, there are these kind of problems, okay, that's where I'm going to stop with Arthur. Now, what's also interesting is that when I looked on Twitter today trying to find something else about the airport, here's what I saw. This was 4 hours ago. It's just after 8 o'clock in the morning Eastern time right now. 4 hours ago, Moscow airport closed again due to a possible drone explosion reported. And we'll keep an eye on that. It's not necessarily that it's damaged anything, but just that it keeps harassing, which is what I'm talking about here. And this one is completely different, this third offensive strategy. And if you haven't watched that, please watch it. Okay, last thing I want to share is this. I get messages periodically saying, would you come and join us and partner with us in something? We see your YouTube channel is growing, and so this is what I have here. Good morning. We hope this finds you healthy. We're reaching out to you from Canada Dry, a beloved brand loved by millions for its revitalizing beverages. We have been monitoring your remarkable content on YouTube and are sincerely awed by your creativity, dedication for entertaining your audience. We are excited to propose a paid collaboration with you that will permit us to leverage your special style and broader. Okay, so I'm like, something doesn't sound right about that. And sure enough, when I look at the address, it's Canada_dry at daum.net. Daum, as plugged it into Google, is a Korean website, and so anybody could create that and call it Canada Dry at daum.net. Now, I wasn't tempted because I don't know how this actually fits anything related to Ukraine. I'll get things from app developers. We want to, talk about our video games on your channel. I'm thinking, like, you don't know who I am. People that watch my channel are generally older than me. I mean, I ought to be hawking Clearlax. Here's Clearlax. It'll help you feel better. It'll make you regular. I mean, that's what I should be talking about if I was going to be doing that. So I'm not selling stuff, right? I'm not. By the way, somebody else was talking about how they got an email about what was it? Not PayPal, on some app saying contact them on this app. I'm not asking you to do that. This is what you want to do. If you ever think that I'm reaching out to you and asking you to do it, I'll do it in a video. And if I'm not doing it in a video, you can contact me if you see somebody reach out. And by the way, if you got one of these from whatever app it was, like somebody was you're supposed to contact this number, send that to me. Let me see what that is, because I want to see what people are saying about me and in my name. But I won't reach out like that. And if you do, you can just send me an email, ask me. If you go to about in my YouTube, if you in fact, I'll show you how to reach out to me if you want to reach out to me. This is the easiest way to do this. You go to my YouTube and then you go to about and you click on about. You'll see a little bit of the description about me, and then you'll see a way to reach out to me. Under here, it says for business inquiries, view email address, and then you view the email address, and it's right there. And I will let you know if that is, yes, this is legit, no, it's not, and it's probably not. Anything that I'm going to put out, I'll put out under the bottom of my screen. And since the very beginning, I said support Samaritan's Purse, which I think is a very legitimate charity. Later on, I added a link for United 24, which is also legitimate. And if you want to give to those kind of sources. All right. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, your interest, and thank you more than anything else for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.